What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Vendetta Blue Show. It's glad to be back again. Ever since going on the greatest podcast in law enforcement, New York's finest and unfiltered. It was a pleasure being on the show. I had a lot of positive feedback. I just want to stress how far back I was waiting to get on that show. Way back in 2022, November 11th. When John sat down, no Eric, he sat down with Tommy Gambardella, who was in the 7-6 detective squad when I was in the 7-8 squad. So Tommy was famous for giving the middle finger to One Police Plaza as he left for the last time. And I thought that was something that was really cool. If you see at the end of my video, my intro video, I show, myself standing on one of the real-time desks giving double birds. So, definitely, John said at that time, he said something to the effect of, a lot of people say they're going to do it, but then when the time comes, they don't actually do it. Well, I did it. So definitely want to shout out to all the VIPs from the finest Unfiltered. I was watching their show a little bit this morning. They had this guest on, politicians. That's how it's going right now. Definitely good to get it out there. You want to know different sides of what's going on in politics. So that's definitely a thing. But yeah, real quick, I definitely want to answer some of those comments and some of those questions. And, it was a wonderful thing being on that show. Really appreciated it. And still ecstatic 2 weeks later. So definitely a great thing. Let's see. I got to shout out Pat Donahue, always giving out those great comments. I hope you were able to get rid of your drone training notification and you got your embroidered hoodie. Definitely one of the good guys, that tune into the finest Unfiltered. Got to shout out Mike Smith. Mike Smith, great detective. Thanks for all your support. I'll get into that later. He left a lot of nice comments during the show. What else we got here? I'm looking at some of the comments from the show. And, there was definitely somebody that I wanted to shout out. Hassan Mo. Hassan Mo had some very interesting feedback. When the show first started, he was like, can we interview people that have, some war stories? But I think I might have been able to win him over a little bit.
If I can change,
I just went on. He changed.
Я думаю, что каждый тоже изменился
and
сегодня.
you can change.
Вы можете
Pretty
измениться.
good. He was questioning if I had war stories and how good the episode would be.
Каждый может
I think I won him over. And, so many more great comments. It was over 2.5 hours on the show, and it really wasn't enough for me. I waited about 2 years to get on. I made up character Chief Armaham, just to get my foot in the door with John. There was so much I wanted to stay at that time, but I couldn't say it. I was still employed. So I had to take a seat back. And Chief Armaham was my way in with John, and he actually spoke about it on his show. So it was a pretty cool thing for me. Yeah. There's so many great moments. I remember when John was interviewing the second grade detective, Michael Alcazar. I was sitting there. I was actually driving to work, and I was listening to the podcast, and he said something about that he never seen nepotism inside the police department. Now, this was a guy, second grade. He worked inside. He does teachings and stuff. I knew him by face, and the whole time I'm like, you never seen nepotism, and you work in One Police Plaza? So it was very frustrating. I remember telling my coworkers about that. So I'm going to start with Mike Freed. He's telling me, what's up, Mike? I definitely remember you from the 7-8. I'm glad you're doing good. I remember you in my first few weeks on the job. You were an old timer, and I was a young rookie, 21, 22 years old. So, a lot of people I haven't seen in 20 years. And for them to remember me actually means a lot to me. With that being said, I actually got so many phone calls from people that I haven't heard from in years. There was a guy I literally haven't spoken to him in 36 years, and he got in touch with my mom, and he got in touch with me ultimately. My mom gave him my number. We spoke, and he was a detective also. And I actually added that to my book, that conversation, because, to hear from somebody that you haven't physically seen in years, like that, 36 years, like I was a kid. I remember literally the last time I seen him. I might have seen him once or twice as a police officer, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, Mike Freed asked, his wife said that he might know me from Guadalupe. She might know me from Guadalupe. I went to Our Lady of Guadalupe from the years of 1988 to 1997. So Guadalupe was, for those who don't know, the NYPD actually does a lot of events with Our Lady of Guadalupe. It's a great church, 15th Avenue and 72nd, I believe, around there, 73rd. Great church. I went there for 8 years. Met some of the greatest friends of my life. I actually shouted them out in one of my videos. But it really prepared me. We couldn't stand going there when we went, but it really prepared me for life as a police officer and a detective, because it shows, instilled the discipline that people need. Just waiting online and gym block and stuff like that. You really don't. A lot of people that you see in the academy don't have the discipline to keep their mouth shut. So little things like that, private school and Catholic school, it was great for. I don't think I appreciated it as much when I was going. But I made great friends, and I talk a lot about that in my book. And I'm going to, just take that time. When you actually finally get this book, Finest My Ass, you're going to see that it's not all police stories. It has a lot to do with what made me the way I am and feel the way I feel about the mirage that we call the Finest or the Blue Wall. So it's a buildup. It's a buildup from my life in Bensonhurst. It's a buildup from my career. So many different aspects that led me to why I feel the way I feel about the NYPD and the greatest department in the world. I was watching myself, in that interview that I did 2 weeks ago with John and Eric, and I'm sitting there, and even when Eric's asking me a question, I'm saying, John, you're right, John, you're right. I'm directing all my answers to John, even when Eric's talking to me. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that when I used to drive to work, I told you, I used to have these conversations with John preparing for that day. So it was just funny. And especially I used to do it with the Chief Armahan voice. John, where are you, John? You never understand what's going on. I'm on my knees. I'm on the Brooklyn Bridge on my knees. So I gotta post that video. It was the whole conversation, because everything I said as Chief Armaham actually happened. So it was a funny thing. Marlon Bethel, Finest Unfiltered VIP. They were just talking about him on the podcast as far as what would happen. What should have happened anyway with him as far as being terminated for not taking the COVID shot. Ridiculous. We're dying for cops right now, and we have a decorated detective that was in intelligence, and we let so many people back, from the COVID time. The shot, I personally regret getting it. I'm sure there's a lot of cops that feel that way, and it's had I not been on a biologic medicine for something else, I would have never taken that. But I was, dealing with that condition that I had, so figure why not. But with that being said, Marlon, he definitely deserves another chance out there, and the job did him wrong, and I really think that they should, consider not only rehiring Marlon, but everyone that was like him, including John. Definitely, 100% in your corner, and I hope you get somewhere with your case. I really do. We were talking about the same lieutenant that I was speaking about, Patrick. Yeah, same guy. Quota scandal, and he was a tyrant boss. He wasn't a tough guy. He used to straight up say, you got to pay the rent. You got to pay the rent. Better. The guy had his little quirks about him. prior to being a special ops boss, he was actually the ICO, and he wasn't one of those ICOs that kind of like just stood back. He wanted to catch you in the act, and that's what kind of boss he was. And ultimately, being in special ops wasn't any better for him because he was still playing ICO, constantly changing our tours, messing with our livelihood. And livelihood was, constantly changing hours. Every day our tour was something different. Had nothing to do with addressing crime, had to do with his daughter's schedule, I think. But when it was all said and done, he never even said bye. And he was a little sneaky. My friend Mike, he actually got hurt. Hold on, Hassan Mo, here we go. We got a war story for you. We're doing a bike op, and my old partner Mike is in the opposite end of the Brooklyn Public Library, and I just let everybody know by radio that our guy just clipped the lock. He was about to take the bike and take off in Park Slope, right, literally right across the Eastern Parkway. So I take off running after the guy. Mike was told to stay on Citywide instead of being on the same frequency with us, which I thought was a terrible decision by the lieutenant at the time, because shouldn't we all be in constant contact with each other? If there's a priority somewhere else, we'll find out about it. But right now, our attention should have been solely on the bike operation. Nevertheless, I take after this guy. He's on his bike. He's trying to cross Eastern Parkway. Luckily, some traffic is over there, and I'm able to chase him down. But Mike just sees me running. Again, he didn't hear the message that this guy took the bike. He didn't know if this guy had a gun. He didn't know anything. So all he sees is his partner running. He jumps down the big flight of stairs from the Brooklyn Public Library. And you heard the pop, like literally. His ACL, his knee, gone. He ends up going to the hospital, and he had to have surgery. In the long short of it, but the first thing that Patrick was concerned about is Mike lying. Instead of going to visit him in the hospital with some of the other personnel that was there, he goes and he starts checking the video at the public library to see if Mike is maybe kind of, I guess, full of shit about it. But sure, he definitely wasn't. He tore his ACL. He was out, and that injury was detrimental to his career in so many ways. That's all I'm going to say about that. But he was Patrick was a company guy. When it was all said and done, he didn't say bye, nothing. He just went on his next assignment, went to Intel, never offered us any help throughout our careers. Later in his career, he started asking me questions about facial identification. I think I ran into him in one police plaza. He took my number down, and he started asking me questions about FIS. And I was like, man, guys have no shame that, they'll ask you for a favor years later. The way he left, he thinks that I didn't forget about that, and then you're going to ask me for help. It's just disgusting. Yeah, but after that, Mike Smith said something. Yeah, brother, thanks for the support. I'm glad you noticed it between the difference between a real-time detective and a real detective. I think your comment was the real-time sucked, something like that. The detectives there sucked. And, that says a lot about your credibility as a detective. Real recognized real, and you were great. I worked with a lot of Midtown North and Midtown South guys. I knew Lieutenant Piatanza. We got our detective shield together. So he used to call me a lot. Great guy. One time I solved so many cases for this guy that his office brought in cannolis as a thank you gift to me and my guys. And unfortunately, he brought them on the day tour, and they ate all the cannolis. I think they left us too. But it's just one of those funny things. There was always two things. I don't know how it is in your office, in the squads around the city, but it's just funny because the day tours and the night tours, it seems like everywhere you go, they left us 2 cookies, 2 cannolis, 2 slices of pizza. And, it was always the day tours. We were like the night tours, like the redheaded stepchild. And that was almost there. Pat Donahue, man, you always got the greatest comments. First off, I want to thank you for saying my work ethic in real time was evident. 100% committed to his craft. I was. There's no doubt about that. I ate, slept, drank, facial recognition. Facial identification to me was everything. From early on in my career, that's what I wanted to do. Once they came out with that unit in 2011, I'll get into that. But you couldn't be more right. You were also right about me being coachable. If you notice, there have not been any F-bombs. Now my whole family knows how I actually speak. And I don't know if Santa's coming this year. But thanks for noticing. And pointing out that I can take criticism and grow from it, because there's a lot of people in One Police Plaza that will tell you different. So when I said, this is going to be an interesting story. When I said that you're the better Donahue, you replied back, interesting, with an interesting comment. And that had you had the right to feel the way you feel. You said Tom was you held him in high regards, and he was a good detective and a nice guy. Eric, what do we say about nice guys? We cowards, right? So a little bit about Tom. I always liked Tom. I tried to surround myself around the other squad detectives and guys that had investigative experience. And Tom was our delegate at the end of our careers. He came from Grand Larceny Unit, and he was very passionate about his work. I cannot take anything away from him as a detective. I always give credit to where it goes, where it's due. And I will, despite the personality issues, I can't say anything about him as a detective. But when everyone's always telling you, nice guy, you got to kind of question, if somebody doesn't have any enemies, what do they stand for? So I had tons of enemies, and everybody loved Tom. Nice guy. He had corny jokes. He was the guy that brought the boss the coffee. He was, always in good rapport with all the executives. And he wanted the same thing that we all wanted. He wanted to get promoted. He wanted recognition for the work that he did, which probably would have been better in another unit. I think Tom would have been great as a detective in counterterrorism, or even interagency operations, because he was always helping out Suffolk and Nassau County. Ultimately a good guy. But the problem is, nice guy. Nice guys are we cowards. Towards the end of our career, now he's the delegate. One of my partners had an issue with people always leaving stuff on our desk, and we kind of knew what was going on. We knew that it was being done to piss her off, and she sat next to him. Now this is real office petty nonsense, and we know it was the boss that was doing it, most likely. And she mentioned to him, listen, if somebody comes to see you and sit down with you, can you remind them to take their trash? And now this is the delegate, and he turns around and he goes, I'm not a babysitter. I really wanted to intervene, but he was the delegate. That was his matter, on the situation. I think he should have stepped up and said, whoever was doing it, he should have put a stop to it. This is a female. She was affected by this more than people could even see. I knew about it. And I just felt like ultimately they bullied the girls in the unit that I worked in. Don't get me wrong. We all had issues. But in this particular circumstance, you're the delegate, and you don't want to step up, and you know what's going on. Like, you can't always play dumb. So that was like strike one for me. There was a few things with cases and looking at my work. Towards the end of my career, I found out that he was actually like taking notes on my work and saving notes, and he knew about things that department stuff pertaining to me and Clearview company. He knew about emails that were sent. He knew about a lot of stuff, and he actually had possession of it. And I found that out later on. He never said anything to me, but this probably had to do with the boss. Like I said, he was very good with the bosses. And I just don't respect that, because if you're such a nice guy, why aren't you telling me something so detrimental to my career? About emails that NYPD NYPD basically blamed me for having conversations with a company that we were openly testing. If you Google my name, Detective Mike Furia, NYPD, you'll see the articles. I don't know. I was the fall guy. We keep talking about fall guys, but somehow I became the fall guy for that. And it wasn't even anything bad. We were just literally testing a new vendor, which is a great software. And I said, I will do everything I can for the NYPD to partake in, this vendor coming to the NYPD. And I stand by that. I don't know what was so bad about it, but they ended up not dealing with the guy because he had a little sketchy history. Nevertheless, he's a billionaire because his software is so good. But Tom knew all about this. He used to take notes on my case, and he left all this stuff on his desk one day. And it's just, like I said, my friend, my partner that I worked with every day sat right next to him. Strange guy. Strange guy. Let's just say, like, he used to literally look at my desk sometimes, like just literally stare at it. So, long short of that, one day I come to work. I just got food, and I'm coming back to eat, and I get a text message saying, Mike's got something. What was it? Mike has a bug up his ass. And there's no other mics that we work with, like literally in real time. There's 2 other mics. So I was literally pissed off about that, because now I walk in right away. He calls me. Oh, Mike. I don't pick up. He's texting me, Mike. He's trying to backtrack like what he had just done. So now I come in the office, and he's like, Mike, is everything all right? I'm like, yeah, everything's just fine. He knew what he did. He knew he made a mistake. Listen, it happens. He was texting somebody else in the office, and unfortunately, he texted me. You thinking of Mike, you actually, texted to Mike. So what happens from there is he goes and I go to use the restroom, right? So I'm in the restroom, and I'm taking a leak, right? He comes up next to me. He's taking a leak now, and he's telling me, Mike, is everything all right? And listen, I want to knock the guy out in the worst way. So I tell him, if there's a problem, I'm not going to talk about this with in my hand. All right. Like, the story is just hilarious, but long short of it, tells me he never had a problem with me, loves me, blah, blah, blah. He was talking about Mike from another unit. All right. Something about another guy, Mike, that tried to use a car that we had. I don't know. But him and I had a long discussion in the hallway, and that was it. I really didn't want to deal with him for many months. I can't trust somebody like that. I know you were talking about me. You made a mistake, and you can't be man enough to admit it. And if you have a problem with me, let's handle it however you want. And that is something that I'm still saying today about other people. The next day, I took it upon myself to go speak to the other 2 mics that it could have possibly been. I spoke to Mike Golden and another guy, Mike in TAU. I forget his name. Mike Diorio. And you could ask them. I tell them, I got a problem, and I want to know if it's my problem or your problem. They looked at me like, what is this guy nuts? But what Tommy alleged never happened. It had nothing to do with the car. The guy made a mistake. A few months passed. My boss asked me, listen, can you, things had changed in the office. Can you let it go? All right. So I let it go. I made up with the guy. We became friends again. And, that was it. That was the end of it. So, but ultimately, I tell people this story because when everybody's telling you somebody's a nice guy, you have to really be mindful of their intentions. Don't be on both sides of the fence. I used to work with another guy that was like that. Used to come over to me every day and try to talk to me, and I knew he didn't genuinely like me. Maybe we had similar interests, and we were coworkers that could have a good conversation. We had, certain aspects of our career were similar, and but ultimately he was just taking the information that I was giving him and telling his friends. So I knew what was going on. People don't just buy you lunch because they think you're a nice guy sometimes, but there's a lot of different gimmicks, especially when you work in an inside unit. You got to be mindful of these things because it could be detrimental to your career. So you want to keep that in mind. So that's why I said that Pat Donahue is the better Donahue. But like I said, his opinion is his opinion. And, from his perspective, I'm sure he was a guy that you could count on because he was a good detective. He just was a nice guy. But real quick, we used to call him Ass Cushion, by the way. Mike Smith commented, when we retire, we get our rights back. Yeah, we do. And that's a beautiful thing, man. It's definitely a weight off your shoulder. I love, look what I'm doing right now. I do my little bit of work. I come out here. I'm literally doing a live story, playing around with social media. I kind of enjoy this. I don't know where I'm going with it. I definitely need to take a break from it in a little while. It's taking up a little too much of my time, but I definitely enjoy it. I like helping people. I like giving positive feedback. I like getting the positive feedback. It's it feels great. I hate the laws on defamation. Another reason why my book has taken so long to come out is because I need legal advice, and you don't want to say certain things. You can't name certain people. I try not to name anybody that is going to possibly sue me, which, I'm sure a lot of people would love to do, but that's what we have lawyers for. When we retire, we get our rights back. So that's a great thing. Really pisses me off, the defamation laws. If you are a certain way, then I should be able to call you out for that. Why you have to hide behind some law? And that has a lot to do with my plans for this part of my life. If you look back and you see me with a camera or taking a photo of a document or just trying to prove something that I talk about in my career, I always have the proof. So, people got to be mindful. I planned on this a long time ago. Crazy 107 said, there hasn't been an Italian in Bensonhurst in 20 years. Man, that's not true. Both my mother there my father's there, my grandfather is there. There's plenty of Italian people in Bensonhurst. I would be there if I could afford it. But Staten Island has great back. I have a great backyard. I got a driveway, so I'm happy in Staten Island, and most of my neighbors are from Bensonhurst anyway. So it's very the best of both lives. Just way too expensive here. Joe B, my buddy Joe B from Grand Larceny. Mike is real deal. Joe and I met as White Shields. I had gotten to the squad a little bit before he got into Grand Larceny. So he kind of used to ask me questions about, being the White Shield investigator. It sucks answering the phone. Officer Furia, 7A Precinct. I couldn't stand it. 7-8 squad, right? We used to talk about things like that, and delegate issues. Nobody wants to deal with you when you're a white shield investigator. You're kind of in between unions. And I used to share with him some of my rookie squad stories, and he used to share with me some of his grand larceny stories. And it actually made me better at learning what to do with certain financial crimes. And we definitely spoke about tactics. I knew a lot of his coworkers. And Joe was a great guy. He was also, just like Marlon, forced off this job because he didn't want to take the COVID shot. And that's ridiculous, because just between Marlon and Joe B, phenomenal detectives, phenomenal. Like, times that by how many people we lost, and how many people we actually need right now in the police department. It's really ridiculous. But Joe's he left New York. I don't want to say where he is. He might not want people to know, but he's living his best life, and I wish him the best. Thanks, Joe. I really appreciate your support. And Pat Donahue, he mentions about me being faster than John, and that's why I never got collared, and John did. Listen, I had my shares. I had my fair share. Besides my little Kmart incident over there with the DVDs, you can read about that in my book. I talk about it a lot. I don't know if anybody who is familiar with Bensonhurst, but on 75th Street and Bay Parkway, might be like 74th or 73rd. There was a house years ago. I think it's a school now, but years ago there was a house just there, and it had an exit sign in it. And my friends and I constantly told stories about this house. We knew like Jewish people had something to do with it, but you never really seen people. Literally used to look in there real late at night and see the red lights, one of those exit signs that you see in a restaurant or a school, and the lights used to just light up red. And we were constantly being told there's possessed in there. There's something going on in there. So one time we go and we're looking in how can we get in this house? We got to see what this is all about, right? So I break the bottom window of in the driveway of this exit house here. That's what we used to call it. And I actually went in the house. Now I'm literally going in the basement. I'm like scared shit. I'm going up the stairs. As soon as I turn the doorknob from what was the basement, ultimately, the alarm goes off. Man, now I see clowns painted on the wall. I'm like, what the hell is this place? And I'm just trying to get out at this point. I get to the front door. My friends took off like a bat out of hell, and kind of, destroyed the myth. It turned out that all it was, this exit house, was a preschool that wasn't being used anymore. So that was that. But as soon as we ran outside, I remember I rarely seen the police in Bensonhurst. And as soon as I ran outside, ESU was driving by, and I was like, man, we're done. Little did I know, ESU was not dealing with anything to do with that situation. So that was kind of funny. So yeah, that would have been a trespassing collar, I guess. They probably would have charged me with Berg. So between that, the larceny I had, and there might have been an incident in Atlantic City that every time in facial recognition, if you run a bald white guy like me, you might see a guy in New Jersey that looks a lot like me that got collared for fighting. But that's neither here nor there. You're definitely right about Woodlawn and Bensonhurst. Very similar. And thank you for saying sauce, not gravy. We do not say gravy. In the Furia family, or my mom's side, the Portrayals, we do not say gravy. We say sauce. Joe Rogan. Mike, the Italian stallion from the 7-8. Hell yeah, brother. There wasn't many of us, Caspito, Nuzzo, and some old timers. But I don't know what happened to the job after Espo left. The Columbia Association, I dealt with it, for a few times. Ultimately, I didn't really stick with it because, it just, I kind of felt it was a club for if you were either in it, you were either in it or you were out of it, and wasn't my thing. I did, I did it a little while, but not a fraternity guy. Never was. If I was in college, I never joined no fraternities. Shout out to my old partner Awad. He's telling me about Roadrunner. So yeah, I don't know how the Columbia Association really takes what's going on with the Hispanic Society right now, because it seems like the Hispanic Society runs the NYPD, and a lot of these fraternities, they do certain things to make certain people in their fraternities get recognition that they probably don't deserve, or they'll make something bigger than what it should be. And with that being said, I actually wanted to talk a little bit about that, before I get into the rest of the comments. There's a guy right now, put it up here. I noticed this. The Hispanic Society put this up there. Sergeant, he got over 100 EPDs. 60 members in the entire history of the NYPD have reached this level of distinguished service. I don't know what took more time, to put all those EPDs in that frame, or to research how many members have more than 100 EPDs. Very interesting, to say the least. I've never seen anything like this before. He's a sergeant. He earned over 100 excellent police duty medals. And I want to show you another thing that I seen here. Over here, look. So this is right here. Let's see. So this is all his EPDs. A lot of them are from his time as a sergeant. He became a detective in like 2019. And so I could understand having a lot prior to being a detective. But I know when I was a detective, I didn't get no EPDs. We didn't write up our collars in the squad. I guess if you're in gun violence, obviously a gun collar should be an MPD. But right, I can't see people writing up gun collars as a detective. I guess maybe he knew he was going to be a boss. He wanted to get those points and stuff. But I just want to put it out there. You can get an EPD for 511 arrest. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if they changed that. If you get 3 511s in 6 months, I don't know if that still exists. I just feel like, is this something that would be celebrated in another fraternity or anywhere else in the police department other than the Hispanic Society? Is this his? Who does this guy know? Is this the pitch to get him the money? I wonder if he knows Gil. But how many people have ridiculous amount of awards and commendations and get no attention for it, no recognition for it. And the whole medal process is ridiculous. I used to write up for my whole team. I enjoyed writing. I used to sit there with the typewriter, make all those stupid carbon copy nonsense. I think I had 23 EPDs and an MPD. It definitely stopped. I didn't write medals up when I was a detective. So that was, I got into the squad in 2013. So those medals were literally 7 years of my career. But as a boss, you're going to get the medal if you're a sergeant. Whatever you write up that you did as a sergeant or what your team did, you're going to get the medal for it. No other boss is going to deny you on the medal board. It's not going to happen. So the accomplishment, listen, I'm not taking anything away from him. I don't know him. I don't, he's probably a great guy. I just feel like in the Hispanic society, we always see these kind of things that are questionable. Like, I can't believe that award, man. I really can't. the frame with all those EPDs. He must be a great guy, and I really hope that's all it is. But the medal process, how you become a decorated officer in the NYPD, it's bullshit. It's finest my ass. That's what it is. You should never have to write up your own medal. First of all, it's ridiculous. Why? Be humble, right? But you have to brag about what you did in a collar. Like I always thought it was ridiculous. None of my medals made me any better of a cop. It was all nonsense. Everything I did to get those medals was just creative writing. And again, I said this last time, the stuff that I did in Bensonhurst and the things I seen before I was a cop were nothing compared to when I was actually a cop. The things I did as a cop, nonsense, man. You already got the advantage. You're a cop. You have handcuffs. You have a gun. So you're doing your job. And a lot of that stuff that you get medals for is just you doing your job. How many 206 times I identified somebody that had to do with a homicide investigation, whether it was the perp or a witness or whatever. Wouldn't you say that identifying those guys, that's 206 EPDs? It's nonsense. But hey, listen, congratulations to the sergeant. Again, I'm not saying anything negative about him. I know plenty of bosses that have even more than that. There's a captain out there that has like 200 and something commendations, and that guy's a phenomenal cop. But the whole process is just ridiculous in my opinion. John Brooks, thanks for confirming the bicycle caper. Yeah, I was definitely involved in that with that sergeant. And yes, Caspito was watching the podcast. He actually caught it later on. Awad and the cow were watching it live. And, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, John, man. You're an old timer. Five Wagon. You gave me a comparison to a guy, Mighty Fuzz. And I had to actually look him up. And yeah, you're right. We do have similar head shapes. He's definitely a darker version of me. I'm definitely lighter. And that was a pretty good observation. I'll agree with that. I'll concur. I would put it on a possible match report. And that's pretty good. You could probably teach the juvenile crime detectives in FIS something, just from your observations. How's your activity? He says that he's taken my line. And that line was, if you don't shake my hand at work, don't shake my hand here. And I said that to Chief DiGiacomo. He's out there now, very big in the news. I used to call him Nookie Thompson from the HBO show, Boardwalk Empire. He was like a fake gangster, right? And we're kind of seeing that now with his little biting incident. But, just ridiculous. All my issues with him stemmed over a GLA. The victim was a perp. And nevertheless, in the squad, unless you have video or some extingent circumstance, you're not investigating a GLA. It's a B9, in and out. I still entertain the guy. He had a lot of money, the perp victim. So I entertained it, but I got rid of it quick, and rightfully so. And this, because the guy had a little political connection, and it got back to DiGiacomo, who was the CO at the time. He wanted to make it an issue. Oh, you got to look into this. Don't shit can. Why you guys shit canning it? Man, listen, I worked here 11 years before you even got here. I care about the community. I care about my job. I care about the work that I do. Mind your business. That's why John Macri actually said something on his show recently about he liked when the patrol, the CO, ran the whole squad, the precinct in general. And I definitely don't agree with that. It's just too much power. Let's just say that. It's just too much power for the CO to have. I don't need the CO to be telling me how to run my cases. He's too close, at least with his own captain. He's concerned with other squads. It's too much micromanaging, and that's what it's going to end up being. If I got to report to the CO, he's going to be calling me in his office for every little case, because don't forget, he's got to go to Comstat. So he's going to care about some of the minor things way more than a zone captain. Would it be better for the NYPD? Maybe as far as lower level crimes and like attention to detail, but you're going to burn somebody out. And as a detective, he burnt me out right after that. Like that conversation burnt me out. And what does that do? It lowers the morale of your detectives, and ultimately they're going to stop trying so hard. So between that case and the other bullshit assault 3 case that Lieutenant John Brennan was breaking my balls about over something that happened in Prospect Park, nonsense, security guard. She was that victim was married to an FBI agent. And so because he was an FBI agent, of course, he reached out to DiGiacomo. DiGiacomo reached out to my lieutenant. And the next thing you know, it was rumored that Chief Boyce, let me do another impression. Another guy in the news, John Brennan, was one of Shell's drivers. He came over to me. I just had come out of court. I was there all day, very stressed out, trial. Another war story, Hassan Mo. I hope you like this one. So I come back from court, and he's like, hey, Mike, what the fuck? Irish. I'm an Irish motherfucker. Fuckity. He loves saying that. Yeah, what's going on with this case? You know, what's going on? And I'm like, sultry in the park. I put the girl on a lineup view. We're doing the photo manager. She didn't pick anybody. At the end of the day, there's no camera. It's in the middle of Prospect Park. She got slapped in the face. She had no visible injuries. It was nonsense, man. Had she not been married to an FBI agent, we wouldn't even be talking about it. And because somebody above his rank balked at him, he was taking the opportunity to balk at me. And that was the day that I put in for real time. Right after that, I was like, I can't deal with this nonsense anymore. I still ended up getting awards from him later on. You see pictures of me with Eric Adams getting Brooklyn Finest Detective Awards and all this nonsense. So my rapport with him was never bad. He was a good guy. But just, again, this goes back to when the precinct CO gets involved, it's never a good thing. Stressed me out. They lost a great detective because he stressed me out over nonsense. And believe it or not, I kept looking at that case throughout the rest of my career. Now I was working in facial identification. Technology has improved. We had a photo of the guy. I literally subpoenaed it was during a marathon. I subpoenaed every marathon contestant I think it was Nike that I had to reach out to just to get the applicants' names. Nike didn't want to give it to me. They ended up giving me some of them. I was trying to find runners in the nearby area. I knew people seen him before. Again, this was nonsense. But years later, I ended up solving that case. It was over 5 years. The statute of limitations was over, but I reached out to the victim. I literally was able to 100% solve that case. That's how dedicated I was to my job. And that was a case that I had in the squad that nobody was thinking about but me, because I still remembered why I left the squad. And it was really over that nonsense assault 3. Man, what else does how's your activity say? Tells me that I have a lot of bad stories in a 20-year career. Yeah, man, and that's why I'm doing this, so other people can learn from it. Nice guys, like I mentioned about Ass Cushion, they're not always on your side. Some of the worst people I ever met were cops. They seem like good people on the surface, but they really were lion rat scum. So, that's how it is. Flid, you mentioned I may have been burnt out from All Out. Believe it or not, man, it wasn't so much All Out that bothered me. It was the politics behind All Out. If you're sending me to East New York or the Bronx, particularly the Bronx, because East New York, I know, very well. But the Bronx, man, I was never in the Bronx. One time before I was a cop. One time I was in the Bronx. You put me out there with somebody that I could feel safe with. And I'm not saying that person has to be in phenomenal physical shape or anything, just somebody that I feel comfortable with. I used to ask to go with a female detective. I literally told real time the juvenile crime admin girl that cried her way into that position to put me every week with you could send me every week, just send me with Janet, and they refused to do that. It was an easy ask. I don't know why they couldn't do it, but they like to see me suffer, and it is what it is. Had you send me with whatever I want, with who I want, you could send me once a week. I don't care. So Awad says, if the CO is in charge of the squads, there wouldn't be any majors. Absolutely. And then what happens? So I don't think that's was a great idea. And they tried to implement that in like 2014, 2015. Again, I forgot what that was called, but they started doing it in Queens, and it was like a pilot program. But thank God that didn't catch on. That would have been a bad thing. You think you got burnt out detectives now? If they do that, it's over. So that's not but yeah, All Out. It's All Out season again. I was just reading a text about All Out yesterday that I got. Maybe I should share it with you guys, for the cops that are active. Man, oh man. What do they say about All Out? At the PC's executive meeting today, they mentioned the summer deployment plan. Here are some of the key points. The summer deployment plan will have its own strategy. These zones will initiate throughout the city that are spiking in violence. The plan will be using mobile field force model, where different officers will be assigned each day and not temporarily assigned as in the traditional all-outs. Every bureau within the department will be assisting. The plan will initiate on May 15th and will be ending on September 15th. Yeah, all right. And then they'll call it something else, and it will continue into December. Monday through Thursday, the department is anticipating utilizing 1,000 MOS per day and will be placed on foot posts throughout the zones. Friday through Sunday, the department is anticipating utilizing 1,600 MOS per day and will be utilized for foot posts and mobile field forces. There will be a rollout meeting held for key stakeholders on April 29th to fully discuss the details. It is being requested that when officers and detectives are assigned to these details, that they are fully involved and engaged with assisting in crime reduction. Yeah, right. Good luck with that when you're sending the 25-year veteran or less, 20-year, 23-year veteran, in the middle of East New York. They're gonna really get involved. They're gonna watch the Q teams out there. Get a better chance of them watching the Q-tips. Mobile captains will be held responsible and accountable for deploying their details and ensuring that officers are present at their assigned posts addressing conditions. All divisions will ensure that their personnel will be assigned RDOs as followed during the summer deployment plan. 1/3 of personnel with Friday and Saturday, another third with Saturday and Sunday, and another third with Sunday and Monday. Unbelievable. Man, oh man. All Out is nonsense. Years ago, when Impact worked, cops and rookies, mostly rookies, right, were writing summonses. They were addressing crime. They were motivated. They wanted to move up. It made sense. You don't put a guy with 20 years on a foot post and expect it to work. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. It's just never going to happen, especially when you don't let him do 1 in, 1 out with the car. The NYPD is lucky that cops just aren't going out sick with injuries. If it wasn't for overtime, they'd all be doing that. And maybe that's something that cops should, I definitely thought about that at the end of my career. I used to say, maybe I should have did less overtime and just stayed an extra 5 years or an extra couple of years. And I probably wouldn't have been as burnt out. And this way, when they want to send me to some nonsense detail, guess what? Oh, my existing back problem, it just hurt again, right? That's what these guys are going to have to do to combat this nonsense. I get it. We're all cops. We all have to be out there. We all took a jobs. They took an oath to put this uniform on. But come on, man. Your day-to-day job sometimes affects the way that I'm not at the end of my career, I wasn't in shape to do a foot post that I wasn't even doing 18 years ago. I did a few foot posts in my career, early on. I was not, it was sporadically, reamed out that ultimately, like, it wasn't every day. I didn't do impact, right? So I wasn't even a good example. Now I did more impact at the end of my career than I did in the beginning. So it just didn't make sense. And I had a desk job, not because that's something that I enjoyed. It was something that my career led me to. You move up, you take a better job working. Unfortunately, it was working inside. But to move up, you become less of a cop. And now you're asking me to go out there and be a cop again when I'm thinking about retirement and all I care about is retiring. And then you don't want to accommodate me. You don't want to send me the days I could go. You don't want to send me with the people I want to go with. And there's no advance notice. There's, some people have childcare issues. Some people have, other things going on, or maybe they want to go to the doctor before maybe they want to go to the chiropractor. There's certain things. There's just so many different things. And the job has no caring or understanding for any of it. What else did Flid say? Flid. Man, all out. Yeah, the joke was on them. I beat that. But yeah, you said real time is all out. It was. The Detective Bureau definitely shit on real time. It wasn't cool what they did with that. And now, we've seen that because they depleted real time. I emailed Chief of Staff Marola. I had the pleasure of meeting him one day. He just came in the unit, and I actually emailed him at the end of my career suggesting certain things that should be done in real time. And I don't know if he read it. I don't know what happened with it. Probably delete. But I sent it to a few different people involved. And if they go back and they see the documents, one of the things I said is you should probably centralize everything, make everything one giant thing, because the amount of detectives that were there, there'd be no queue. There would have been no, we'll get to it later on. It was easily manageable. I was doing multiple different jobs at one time, and that was just me by myself. Now imagine 80 detectives. But, instead they depleted the unit. They took, it had nothing to do with seniority. It had to do with nepotism. They'll kick out somebody with 23 years, ADA squad experience. She was in the squad. Then we had a guy from Special Victims. We had detectives that didn't earn their shield in real time. But we kept the certain people in FIS that had zero investigative background, zero talent. They're just there in their position strictly because of nepotism. And I don't know how anybody sees that juvenile crime detective has more value than somebody that worked in all those places. We had a warrants guy. We had social media guys, just guys that actually knew how to operate computers. Even our young detectives that got shipped to squad, some of them were more proficient than a lot of the people that they did keep. So maybe if they did read my emails and my suggestions, maybe they did take some of it that I said, but they should have reached out to me. I would have told them exactly what to do. But whatever, just a small fish. Marlon, cool. He says cool. I didn't know you. He was a cadet in the building. Okay. I went to cadet orientation before I was a cop. I was a terrible student, so there was no way I was gonna maintain the GPA and be able to do that job. But my friend Ryan did. I talk about that in my book. And I actually lived out my best friend's dream job. So and me and him, we actually took a turn for the worse, and it had a lot to do with what I went through on the job. In the academy, my instructor, Tara Comiskey, I want to shout out to my crew, 0522, Deuce. We were told in the academy, you're going to lose a lot of people in your career. 20 years goes fast. You're going to have family members that you lose, and you're going to probably lose most of your friends. And for half my career, I used to be like, nah, I'm not having that problem. But the more involved with the NYPD I became, I started losing my friends because the job started affecting me differently. And the things I was going through, the people in my life, they couldn't understand because civilian life is very different. And it wasn't till one of my old partners, Rob, committed suicide, and a lot of the friends that I had prior to this job didn't understand how I felt about it. And it wasn't their fault. That's, again, they lived a different life, different careers. But I think, you kind of start saying, I don't know if I want to be around this person right now. And right now becomes a week, and then a week becomes a month. And then before you know it, you just lose ways with this guy, and the ties that you had are no longer valuable anymore. And then maybe you start seeing things for the bigger picture. And before you know it, that's why when they say all we have is each other, it's true, because the friends that I do have from this job are, greater friends than I had prior to entering the job. So in that fashion, that was true. But Marlon, yeah, you might have knew the original real timers, that Deron Naismith, Alberto Lugo, great guys. I don't know, maybe you know those guys. Mike Smith. I don't remember Ashima. Maybe Marlon knows him. But I'm glad you actually mentioned that you knew my old boss. You said that he was an ass clown from the 120. And man, listen, all I could say about that guy is one of the biggest liars I've ever met. Even today, I went to see him like a man. Couldn't admit to me things that I know he did. But again, you can't do anything with a liar. Like, the guy's just lying to my face. You said you were gonna. You said something. You made that statement, and now I'm here to shut your mouth. And you're gonna pretend that you never said it. And that was always the case with me and this guy. Like, you're always saying something. Then when I call you out on it, it's not what it is. You probably knew his partner too. His partner, Eric. I didn't really like him too much, but I think he kind of made up for some of the stuff that he did. He was a funny guy. I don't think he really cared about the job. He was in a similar boat as me, just trying to get promoted. In the end of my career, he did something to me that really pissed me off, but he kind of made up for it. And I don't focus on him too much. But yeah, that guy you mentioned, terrible guy. And I wonder that too, because, being that you knew him, there's a lot of people out there that are getting feedback from the people that I'm talking about. And I kind of wonder how that affects the people, how they view me. Because like I said, man, listen, I'm telling you, everything I'm saying is true. I could prove it, for the most part, for almost everything I say can be proven, right? And Now these people are probably painting a different picture. Oh, Mike was this, Mike, angry guy. Yeah, I was. Disgruntled. Yeah, I was. I'm not denying any of that. So if you're looking at me different because a rat said something to you, you might know the same rat that we know, we might know the same guy. All I'm going to tell you is I can guarantee you that everything I'm telling you is happened. So if you want to look at me as a different person, because I do notice a little bit of change in certain people that were pro Mike. I question where they're how they feel about me now. Now that our mutual friends reach out to each other. And to be honest with you, I don't want to be friends with anybody that is friends with a rat anyway. So, you got to kind of take a look in the mirror and see if you really know your friend as well as you think you do, because I learned the hard way, and that's why I do this. So other people don't have to. But it is what it is. See, Mikey. Yo, what's up, man? What's going on? Mikey. Let's see. Crazy 710. Most cases close to wanted flyers in the squad. Yeah. That was always the case. A lot of times in the squad, they're closing cases out to wanted flyers. It makes sense. But at the same time, in the past 8 years, most of the closings are C4 pending FIS results. And now that's not a typical closing. You don't close a case like that. That just is kind of like lazy. Like, oh, all right, well, I'm going to leave my whole case in the FIS's hands. If we get nothing, then it's closed. And these bosses are saying that's okay. I don't get that. But all right. That's why in FIS, we used to get a little upset. Like, if you're able to get away with that, closing the case, and, you're leaving it in FIS's hands. And now if we get a hit on it, we were your lifeline. You're pretty much saying that's all you have left is FIS. So now we get a hit on it. And I'm not talking about just a regular drag and drop hit that the Daytors were doing. I'm talking about like something that needed work, social media workup, a photo enhancement, whatever it may be. Now I get a hit. You might possibly get promoted off that case. And there are cases like that. The 4-4 case where there was shootings with the kids on the sidewalk. You used to see the news photo, mothers walking with a little girl, a little boy. That was a 4-4 case. I think the detective's name was Cato. Nothing against him. He did his job. We ended up getting a photo of the perpetrator going into the subway. Another FIS detective that I worked with at the time, who retired, he no-matched it. I got a phone call about that case to work on it. I ended up matching it. I got the right guy. And Cato got promoted, and, he couldn't close that case C4 pending FIS. That was a high media case. But I'm just saying, I was able to find the guy. This guy got promoted, and what did we get? Another good job, right? So that was a gripe that I had working in FIS. Like, what is it going to take for somebody in FIS to get promoted? The best work is behind us anyway. But I don't know. Michael Fried asks, if you don't have tattoos, what's the point of sending it to FIS? Well, that's incorrect, because we've made matches, with guys wearing full blacked out sunglasses. Technology today is phenomenal. Like I keep saying, ever since July of 2022, technology has improved so much that you don't really have to enhance photos too much. You will still have better results if you enhance it and you know how to enhance it. But there's still things that you could do. So you do have to send anything with a face. My best match that I ever had was a extremely blurry photo of a guy wearing glasses. He was wearing a jersey, glasses. He was in a car. You could barely visibly see this guy. So the guy that reached out to me with this case was a sergeant that I worked for 6 weeks in crime control strategy. He reaches out to me. Oh, Mike, you have to help me with this. And I actually told him, yeah, you have to help me with this. If I find this guy, which is going to be like a miracle, then you have to tell Chief LePetri to push for Mike Furia to get promoted. Right. And he literally like agreed with me. Again, something I could prove. I didn't think I was going to find the guy. That's why I said that. I'm looking. I enhanced the photo. I did like 10 different versions of it, and only one of them hit, which is why I say this is so, it's so, you have to be so precise for it to work, because 10 photos that I enhanced all look great, but only one of them worked. So now I'm looking like through 160 photos. You rarely found somebody that deep in 2021, 2020. You know, in the years prior, you had to go all through 43, but 160 about that time was pretty high. It was pretty much your last chance. And I'm looking and I find a guy, and I noticed a tattoo on his forearm similar to this, but it was like a cross. And luckily, this photo manager case, the mugshots and photo manager showed his tattoos, and I was able to find that guy. And I was amazed. Like, I jumped up, man. I used to celebrate. When I was happy, and when I was pissed, I was punching the wall. And I think that scared a lot of people. So, you have to send everything, because you never know what we're going to get. I can't guarantee you that somebody's going to put that effort in the way I did, but the squad guys will. And I'll get into that too. Somebody asked me if I know Marlon Guthrie, and yeah, Marlon Guthrie was a great detective. He worked in FIS with me. He came from the squad right before I retired at a Christmas party. Actually, I told the lieutenant, and I used to tell Marlon this all the time, but I told in front of the lieutenant, all three of us, somebody else was there too. I says, this is the guy that you're going to have to be pushing for. This is like one of the last squad guys here. He's got a lot of time in the squad. This should be somebody that gets promoted, not the juvenile crime detectives. There's him. There's another detective that probably wouldn't want me to name him. He's from the squad too. So you got those two guys up there from the squad. And that's who should be getting looked at for promotion. But yeah, Marlon was a great guy, and I'll get into that. I just got to find the comment. I don't remember Shima. John Latanzio says, I was a great guest. It was with awesome insight on the job. Thanks, John. I'm very knowledgeable about the job because I endured a lot of pain from the job. So I enjoy sharing it, and I try to help others. And when Nike Head 27 says best, don't love the job because the job won't love you back. And I wish Nike Head 27 told me that a long time ago. I knew that, but sometimes when people tell you things, it depends who's telling you. You look at it in a different light. I didn't love the job. I loved my job. I loved my craft. And I just wanted to be treated as a good employee because I was way more valuable than most. And that's, some people are going to look at that as cocky, but it's proven, So, Ron Layson, fellow 7'8" guy. Now, sometimes I watch the executive perspective. It's a little later, so I don't always catch it. My son does karate. Matter of fact, I was at karate when John texted me to come on the show. So that's why I had a quick setup that day. But, I don't always catch that show. And it's funny because when I watch Ron and Rob together, I can't help but feel like I'm looking at like two executives in my CO's office or something. They're higher ranking bosses. And I had terrible luck with bosses in my career. So like the way that we feel like, oh, perp, our radar goes off. With me, it's like, oh, bosses. So I kind of stay back. So for him to say, that positive things about me, and the show met the expectations. I really appreciate that. He says next time bring a guy on who speaks his mind. Yeah, man, I always speak my mind. Chief Chucky Scholl, the late great, said sometimes you have to toot your own horn, and I always did that because I wouldn't have been a detective if I didn't take his advice. If I didn't open my mouth, I'd still be in. He knows. Ron Layson knows. I'd be locking up Robert Royster on 7th Avenue for aggressive panhandling. I'm sure that guy was around when he was there. You can't even do that anymore. It's not even a crime anymore, right? Guy made a killing in front of those banks. But yeah, Ron, you said you stayed on the job to help others. I can't tell you how many inspectors and chiefs thanked me and told me and that they'd be giving my kudos, their words, not mine, to the top ranking members in the NYPD for me to get promoted. But again, it was all carrots dangling in front of me. It wasn't just my bosses dangling the carrots. It was higher ranking executives. They would call me directly, and I have all those emails. I posted them on videos. They're out there. Don't believe everything you hear. Sometimes you got to ask. In the end of my career, people wanted me to work in their units. I was going to work in one of these deputy commissioners, Lisa White. I had an opportunity to work in her unit, and I says, if you guys promote me now and send me there, I'll go. But I never heard from them after that. They're not going to do that. They want you to go. But what am I going to do? Take your word? Look what happened to me in my career. No way. So, Dangling Carrots. I'd love to know just how many of them even mention my name to somebody. Probably none, because bosses are afraid to lose what they have. And, sometimes bosses don't want to take, they don't want to vouch for somebody like me, because I don't fall in line, and I'm a liability to their career. Joe Curtisis was pretty knowledgeable about who had the talent, but so he probably would have kept pushing for me had he not retired. But at the same time, he wasn't in the limelight, so he could have pushed for me all he wanted, and it would just made people hate me even more. Rob Lukash, you said it best. Bosses take credit, leaders give credit. Nobody wanted to give me credit. They just wanted me to put my work on a PowerPoint and take credit for my work and the PowerPoint. Even my logo, man. I was told to make a logo for the unit, and the guy, he was using it even after he retired. Little did he know I actually copyrighted the logo, because I knew he was going to do that, and I got to send the cease and desist letter. And this logo right here, oh my God, the amount of stress that logo caused me. So when the boss retired, the first thing I wanted to do was just like get rid of all the stuff that he implemented. I had my buddy working up there with me now, and I just wanted to move on with my career and see better things and just forget about everything else. And so we implemented this logo. It was pretty nice. I got such negative feedback from my coworkers because I didn't involve them in the process. Meanwhile, I was the artist. And the lieutenant couldn't stand it because he had no say on it. My sergeant went over his head. So that was like literally the funniest thing. A week or two after I get in trouble, they changed that logo. It's no longer the FIS logo. And I thought that was so childish and so apparent that they were out to get me. I that shit really bothers me still. Nevertheless, I actually like the new logo. It's not bad. I thought it was kind of originally it was the second version of it, but the just the way they went about it, it was just really pathetic. That these were grown men and these were executives in the police department. It's a joke. Enjoy your logo, assholes. Who else was there? Ron, you said stay on the job. Yeah, so you say you stayed on the job to help others. Mike Freed, you said a lot of us worked for free. Absolutely. As cops, we're always doing things out of the goodness of our heart. I agree. I worked for free. I worked from home a lot of times. But the difference is this: when I did it, I wasn't just doing it because I was passionate about my cases. Yeah, well, that was true. But sometimes I was doing it just to keep my case. They felt the need to constantly reassign my case as if I wasn't available to work on it when I always made myself available. Obviously, if I'm solving cases for home for free, you don't have to worry about me not handling my case. So that's the difference. And also during COVID, when I was solving cases from home, I'm probably the only person in NYPD history to ever be told to stop working. They literally didn't want me to work. They said I was doing too much work. We're going through a pandemic and there's nothing else to do except worry and, do something that eases my mind, which is put bad people in jail. So, yeah, I'm guilty of that. Morons. You can't make that up. Again, I was making everybody else look bad, so I had to be made an example of. This leads me to what else? The entire NYPD, yeah, the entire NYPD is constantly on my LinkedIn page, dying to know what it is that I do, and they're never going to find out, so they could keep looking. I actually had to get rid of one of my lieutenants constantly looking at my page, like every single 10 minutes looking at my page. Like I didn't have an issue with the guy. He was actually a nice guy. He helped me out a lot, but it was kind of weird. Like, who's he reporting back to? And that's why I say, like, sometimes like you got to watch out for those people that are friends with your enemies. Like, you got to really be mindful of that. Have an opinion on somebody for what you think of them, not from what you're being told about them. Ridiculous. This leads me to Tom Joyce's comment about my career. He says, anti-crime in 18 months, squad in 7 years, real time in 10 years, and now I'm an FIS expert witness subject matter. Yeah, I got anti-crime fast. I'll give you that. But like I said, nobody wanted to do it. And why wouldn't you want a 21-year-old, 22-year-old guy on your team that could outrun? I was a boxer. Like, why wouldn't you want me on your team? I never understood that. The youngest cops that are motivated and are not afraid to do police work and know how to articulate it are the cops that you should want on all your teams. So, that makes no sense to me. But yeah, I got that opportunity and got nothing but negative feedback from my veteran coworkers. Oh, the rookies in crime, the rookies in crime. Yeah, but you don't want to do it anyway. So what do you care? But after getting into crime, to get into the squad was ridiculous. Let's just look at the sergeant that I posted before. Look at his record. He got on the job in 2014 and he's a detective by 2019. So that's 5 years. And then he became a sergeant after that. So, compared to him, I didn't move at any lightning speed. This was the norm. I knew a lot of people that were in the squad 4 or 5 years on. It took me 8 years. So, and it also took me a lot of interviews. I seen a lot of people with less arrests than me go into the squad. I seen a lot of people with less masculinity than me go into the squad. I had great computer skills. You couldn't teach me anything on a computer. I seen a lot of poor patrol tactical guys go into the squad. It was nepotism. It was nepotism similar to today, but it was less obvious. You know how many times I had to fail interviews? Warrants, Detective Bureau, twice. Financial crimes, the Personnel Orders Division. Facial identification, even though I'm the most qualified applicant till this day to ever work there, did not take me at first because I was not a detective yet. Swamp, Photoshop expert, couldn't work there. But they took the vice president of the Hispanic Society years later with 0 qualifications. I literally had to go down there and show him how to do certain things. And the guy that was previously there had to show him everything. So just a joke. Special victims. Couldn't get that. They said they wanted domestic violence officers. So now doing anti-crime was hurting me. Hate crimes. OMAP. Vandals. Every one of those units. And narcotics, I would have gotten it, and I should have did it as an undercover, but I made the mistake. The precinct was able to swing that carrot and tell me me and my partner could remain partners in anti-crime. Should have definitely took that opportunity to be an undercover. I think my whole life would have been better. But who knows? Maybe I would have been a second grader complaining that I didn't get first grade. I don't know, because that's a lot of the undercovers that I met. At that point, even when I was in the squad, I never cared about grade. So maybe not. Maybe I would have been happy in as an undercover. But all those units I applied for, I couldn't get any of them. So although I did move up, rightfully so, and although I did do it fast, rightfully so, I was qualified to do everything I did that I attained. Yeah, I am a facial recognition expert in subject matter. Absolutely. But I had that knowledge before I was a cop. So why shouldn't I have that qualification? I fought for everything that I got. Nobody gave it to me. I had 0 hooks my whole career. So yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good career when you look at it from that aspect. But the corruption that I had to deal with, the bad ethics, the people, the supervisors, how could certain people make it like I should be happy with what I went through. No, I would have traded it all just to be treated like a good employee. All right. Mickey Murphy asked if I was wearing fat-laced Pumas. No, I like Puma clothing, but I was not wearing fat laces, nor was I wearing Puma sneakers. Still an uptown, all-white kind of guy. But it's funny because I worked in a place that was obsessed with suits. You sat there like this. No matter what you did in real time, you sat there like this, 12 hours a day. And I worked with bosses that were afraid to speak up. We had a guy, Lieutenant Pete Nunez, who used to always be able to fight for our polo shirts. We wore polo shirts. The minute he retired, that was it, man. Oh, these guys got to be in suits and ties. It's not going to make a difference if I'm wearing a suit and a tie on how I type. Am I going to be more professional? Am I going to be more courteous? Am I going to do anything better? No, it's actually going to slow me down because now I'm hot sitting in a fucking suit and tie. Like, it made no sense. So it really, really pisses me off because they made so much about my job, about the suit and tie. Like, I get it in the squad. Listen, that goes with the territory. I personally think the vest that they got is great. The vest and the polo shirt is more intimidating, in my opinion, than a suit and tie. And that's why they originally started with suit and ties. It was good in the box. It was good. It was good in, presenting yourself as a professional. And so is a vest and a confident detective. And somebody that feels comfortable is going to do their job more efficiently, especially in what I was doing as a investigative and also computer job, right? So we should have been comfortable. The suit and tie, man, they got to really change with the times, the NYPD. They got to stop with this whole 1930s outlook. Just the world in general needs to stop with the suit and tie. Like, enough. Everything's on an iPhone. Most people in this world spend most of their time on the phone today, but we're still wearing the same kind of business attire that we wore hundreds of years ago. Like, when is the world? I will never wear a suit and tie again. I'm telling you right now. A lot of people, matter of fact, people reached out to me after the podcast about potential job interviews and job offers, right? And it's funny because I will never want to work somewhere where I have to wear a suit and tie. I'll never do it. I don't care. You could offer me a substantial amount of money, and I'll probably turn it down. Um, yeah, it also has to do with after the NYPD. I don't think I could work under somebody again. Like, not at all. What I do in my with my time now, um, I would never be able to take orders from somebody. I couldn't do it in the NYPD. There's no way in hell I'm going to do it for some average guy who knows less than I do, or complains that I'm running late, or some nonsense. Like it's not going to happen unless I'm the boss. There ain't going to be no yes sir, no sir, no more. That ship has sailed, and that's the beauty of we get our rights back, right, Mike Smith? So I hope everybody in 1PP is enjoying their suit and tie. Nonsense. Complete nonsense. Let's have suit and ties, but let's sit outside and smoke cigars all day. We get guys sitting in the office sleeping all day. Like, come on. You worried about suit and ties? Nonsense. Pat Donahue mentions how he was always passed over for second grade. Pat, man, I feel your pain, man. And I feel even worse for you because you knew all these important people as a trustee, and I'm going to say it, you weren't the flavor. So it must have been even harder for you to deal with than somebody like myself, who was just, he knew, I knew I wasn't liked, right? And you were a great guy, and a lot of people did like you. You could see in your interview that you really loved this job, and you loved policing. Me, a little different. But I would love to know, as your opinion as a trustee, what could somebody do to change this process? Can what could somebody like me do now that I'm retired? Is there a city agency that we could reach out to? Does DCAS have anything to do with it? Like, how do we change the nepotism-based promotions? It was something that either Rob or Ron, one of them, mentioned. I didn't write it down, but about as far as my idea for a unbiased panel. Somebody mentioned that they were interviewed years ago for second grade when they got put in. And I agree with that. You should be interviewed in front of a panel, but it should be more anonymous than just a standard. All right, Mike Furia is coming in. He was put in for promotion. Because the minute they see my name, and that's it. It's over. So, can you do this with by a number-based system? I mean, we have all the technology in the world, so why can't that be done? I tell you where, this is applicant 75. He works in this unit. He has this many arrests. He'd like to talk to you today about his most notable cases. These are his qualifications. This is his training. This is his skills. This is how long he's been studying this, so that could be done. And we don't, we could recognize each other from voice sometimes. So maybe it's not even done verbally. I don't think we have to go that deep, but it could also be typed. It could also be done like this, like a YouTube live thing, but you don't have to show faces. There's so many ways it could be done. The problem is people don't want to do it the right way, right? Mike G 63. So he asked me if I work with Marlon. Yeah, we spoke about that. And I said I'll get back to Marlon. And again, we're talking about Marlon Guthrie, not Marlon Bethel. One of my coworkers in FIS. Yeah, listen, if Chief Savino's watching, or somebody that is friends with Chief Savino, absolutely, Marlon definitely deserves, he deserves promotion bad. He worked in the squad. He's a great guy. He does his work hard. He's very appreciative to be where he is. And I always told Marlon, long before I got in trouble, that I would love to see him get promoted. He deserves it. I mean, the guy, he was kind of involved in a shooting in the job. You'll never really hear about him. He's a very humble guy. Uh, works his ass off. So definitely one of the. I'll always promote the squad guys. Always. But it also brings up another interesting part of my career. Marlon knew a couple of guys in the unit prior to he got there, and we were both friends with my last boss. And there came a point where we were both put in for promotion, and there was a lot of people that were upset with him getting put in because he was pretty new to the unit, but he was a detective in the squad for multiple years. So I kind of see both points, even though I can't stand the people that oppose that. But I do see both points. Like, what happens in that scenario? Here I am. I'm the best to ever do what I did. And somebody new comes in to the unit, but he's not new as a detective. He's a great, phenomenal detective. So now what happens then? Like, who gets put in priority order? Like, how does that work? That's questionable. What was told to me was whoever has the bigger hook is who should get promoted. And this was my friend that was telling me this. So that was something that was, will always stick with me. And I'll never forget that, because it should never come down to that. Whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong, the hook should have nothing to do with it. And ultimately, we had like almost the same amount of time in the squad. So, really, shouldn't it come down to the FIS thing? I mean, that's where we were today. I don't know. We'll never know the answer to that, I guess. But it didn't matter, because rumor is neither of our paperwork was ever put in. Apparently, the lieutenant only put in this one particular rat. So, we'll never really know. That's a whole nother problem. You should never be able to tell somebody that you're getting put in for promotion and then the paperwork just disappears. Isn't that some kind of legal, that's got to be an issue in one way or another. Like, that could be damaging to a person. And then for me, it really was. Like, you're going to sit there and tell me that I'm doing everything right. I'm trying to advance in my career, and now this paperwork's just gone. I don't know how they get away with the whole system, but I told the lieutenant right to his face, "You need to fight for Marlon." And I'm sure I went in one ear and out the other. He sat there with the same, I didn't want people know who I'm talking about, but he sat there with the whole like, "Oh shit, yeah. I gotta. Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good guy." What he was really saying was, "There's no way that this guy is I'm going to push for this guy when you know that my buddy is who I'm pushing for." Like, come on, joke. I'm going to come back to that topic again when I talk about Chief Corey, but IMP. FRCO. I seen him today on John's show, Finance Unfiltered. John and Eric. You're a good man, Mike Furia. Well, thank you, brother. Not many people in real time will agree with you. But hey, listen, it's lonely at the top, and I always said that. Mikey McMurphy. I like your fireplace and TV setup. Well, like I says, Mike called me. I'm sorry, John called me literally when I was at karate for my son, and was like, "You want to go on the podcast tomorrow? It's your time, finally." And I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm ready." So I have my desk there. I set it up. I actually like that setup a little bit better than this one, believe it or not. But I guess this is the standard. John is definitely somebody to look up to when it comes to the podcast. So I kind of copied his setup a little bit. Um, you know, I don't know how long I'm doing this. I don't, this is something that I didn't anticipate. I just enjoy it. So, I'm not going to be the next New York's finest and unfiltered. I am nowhere near as talented as John and Eric are at that doing this podcast. I just like my delivery and I like the feedback that I get, and it gives me something to do other than work, right? So almost done. Haha. I never meant. Oh yeah, okay. So he's telling me, how are you going to put the 9.4 in the same category as the 7.3 and the 7.5? When I said that, I wasn't putting them in the same category. I definitely know the difference. My buddy's in the 9.4 squad, and I don't want to name him because anybody associated with me is probably taking a negative light right now because I'm Mike Furia, right? And I have a vendetta. So it is what it is. Some of the slower commands, believe it or not, have the best detectives. I'm just going to say that because they have the time to do it the right way. So it doesn't really matter. Fast, high crime, low crime. I read cases citywide when I was in FIS, and you could put me anywhere because I read everybody's style, and I seen the things that need to be done. And it really doesn't matter where you work. It's really how well you do your job and how much attention you put into detail. And that's what being a detective is, right? Detecting things. So, the box, I always preach about the box. That's where a real detective is made. Pat Donahue. Oh, yeah. So he asked me if I helped Gil with his challenge coin. The funny thing is, I didn't, I says I didn't. But then when I look back, I actually did. I'm trying to bring it up on my phone because I totally forgot about this. What did he say? Look at this right here. Looks great. May 25th, 2016, 7:55 a.m. Let's see if we can get it in. It's not going to work right there. There you go. It looks great right there. When you help everybody, and I'm telling you, the people that hate me, there's not one person that I haven't done a favor for. I've helped everybody in my career. So when you've done so much for other people, like I says, I did his friend's towing company's flyer. I've done so many things for people. I don't even remember how much stuff I've done. But yeah, I did help with a coin. And I think it was probably this coin right here. So, garbage. I ended up making my own coin. I got no more left. But if anybody wants to trade for them, they're out there. But yeah, I guess I was wrong with that. So I did help him with his coin. Tom Joyce. Oh, he asked me about peer reviews when it comes to FIS. We used to do peer reviews all the time. The problem is when you have 600 cases, you're not going to be dealing, constantly doing peer reviews. The unit sends out 30, 40 matches a day. So it's too much. It's two different tours. And again, there was a lot of divide, not just between me and the day tours, but the night tours and the day tours in general. I worked with a girl who most of the people were afraid of in my unit. Definitely somebody that spoke her mind, and they were literally afraid of her. So there was a lot of divide, and for the most part, I got along with her, and we were pretty tough together. Let's just say that we were a tough team, and the funny thing about it is you're not going to want to do a peer review with. That's how bad the relationships were in there. These guys stayed to themselves, and our team stayed to ourselves. But yeah, me and Janet, we constantly helped each other. If I had to ask somebody's opinion, my boss was constantly calling me in the office because he used to solve cases too. And, so we did peer reviews. But the problem is sometimes you need everybody's opinion and you need more than one person because it's easy for me to sell you something. I could sell you a match on anything, man. I could tell you similarities in two people that really don't even look alike. But it's how you sell it. It's what you see. It's more peer review is a great thing. It's just not always done, and it's too much work to constantly be doing. Uh, M. Rob. M. Rob says that he worked with George in the 4A precinct. So that was in regards to George Brown being the lieutenant that somehow got the plagiarized version of my promotion paperwork. Um, Again, still won't ever be able to prove if he's the one that did it or it was given to him from my sergeant. I don't know. I can never prove that. But I do know he's the author on it in the Word document. So, that comes to whether it's copy or paste. I don't know how it was done, whatever it may be, but was never really a big fan of him. He actually shook my hand the first day I met him, seemed interested in my work. But once it was told to him that Mike Furia doesn't fall in line, he was never a fan of me. He was drawn to the day tours. He actually liked one of the personnel in the office. He had probably had a thing for her. Who knows? But the guy had no respect. Couldn't even, I definitely think a leader should always say hi to his personnel. Most of the time, what I got from him was if I was lucky. And every time he did that, I just wanted to knock him out. I think that's ridiculous. Be a man. If you don't like me, don't say nothing to me. What's this? What is that? Never really appreciated that. Just what a joke. But it makes you wonder, especially when you find out the things that I found out with my paperwork. Maybe he was involved. I know he was friends with a lot of people that did me wrong in the end. He was friends with the CO. So you will never really know. I think he was friends with Chief Harrison or something. He was like a ball boy or a bat boy or something like that. That's how he got where he was in his career. Well, whatever, man. If that guy got a problem, here I am, bro. Ken Flores, Crazy 707. So he pretty much mentioned that once you complain about your unit or something like that, or once you speak up, you're done. I don't know if it was misinterpreted, but I never complained about anybody in my unit outside of my unit. I said I literally went right to their faces, and that's why they had such disdain towards me, because I spoke my opinion about them. Yeah, so I never went to anyone outside my unit. I never filed an EEO. I never made an IAB complaint. I never did anything to that effect. Everything I always did stayed in-house, and that was what I was taught when I was in the squad, and that was what I was taught as a 4-year-old in my house. Like, you don't go and rat people out. It's just not practical, especially as a cop. Like, what kind of man are you? Let's see. What else? Pat Donahue. Holmes was a problem from day one. Yeah, you're right. You are definitely right, in my opinion. So Holmes actually liked me. I think I posted an email one day. She said I was the best. I helped her later in her career. She reached out to us. And I was the only one working. It was like 3 a.m. Some guy was about to jump off a bridge. I ID'd this guy off of a terrible photo. Oh, Mike, you're the best. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. A million good jobs. I worked for her for a couple of years. She never really spoke to me. I was a huge talent in the office, whether you liked me or not. How could you not say hello here and there? Just terrible vibe. I really didn't enjoy working for her. My boss got along with her very well, so that was beneficial. Until he was my boss, she didn't even really know who I was, because my other bosses didn't like me, so obviously they weren't gonna, back me up or promote me. to her, but she did sign one of my second grade recommendations. But again, this has a lot to do with my boss. She was only concerned with one person in the office, and that was the guy who knew Jeffrey Madry. That shouldn't surprise anybody. Um, but yeah, so they had a relationship, and I don't mean like a physical relationship or anything like that, but they used to go on vacation together, and they had you know, an advantage together, as opposed to, if you're going to look out for somebody, you're not looking at my work, you're looking out for your friends, you know. And then there was another person in the office that eventually became her driver. So it was all nepotism, uh, I would love to hear her opinion on talent. I would love for her to tell me who she thought was talented, who the people making her look so good were. I wasn't inviting her to my backyard parties. I wasn't telling her about my heritage or anything like that. She literally didn't know me because she didn't care. She didn't take the time to assess the talent in the room. All she knew is I was the guy that worked with the girl that nobody liked. Um, and that's how I was taken by a lot of people. Uh, so I didn't kiss her ass. Like, I didn't tell her, "Hey, bro, you're looking beautiful today," like some of the other rats did. But it is what it is. I would love to know her opinion on all that paperwork too that I found. And love to know that. K Print wins too. Yeah, this is the guy that says that he went on an interview for promotion, and I think that's awesome. That's how it was back in the day. I didn't know that. I think that's a great practice. They should definitely bring that back. Samara Cohen, Ken Flores, Mikey G. They all say that pretty much it was bad what I went through. And yeah, I definitely have PTSD from bad bosses. The paranoia that you get from dealing with all these morons, that's probably something that outlasts everything else. Like, I'm over everything that happened to me now. Just because I'm talking about it doesn't mean I'm not over it. I'm over it. But the paranoia, that will always be there. How do you really trust somebody when even your friends you couldn't trust? So it is what it is. Rob Lukash mentions admin position is a reward. Steady days off, lost time, but promotion are for workers. Oh, man. I don't know how I take that. First of all, FIS is definitely an investigative position. Okay. It's not just you're dragging a photo and dropping it in the software. Yes, that is the majority of the cases. Technology has improved. Can't deny that. But it's still not administrative. You have to go around. You're supposed to look at social media. When I put a case together, and what I want to say, like when people like Mike Smith say that I was a great detective as opposed to the other real-time guys, his words, right? He's saying, when I gave you a match, a lot of times I had the guy dead to his rights. I went to social media. If he was wearing a yellow shirt in that day, I had a match with that guy wearing a yellow shirt that day. Like, there was no reason for the jury. I used to look at it from the jury side to say how could this be the guy? Because again, facial identification is just a lead, right? So let's be clear on that. Definitely investigative. But now I'm in an admin. You want to call it an administrative position? I'm in an administrative position. Why? Because I worked in the squad. I wanted to move up from the squad because of the nonsense that I mentioned earlier. And I wanted to use a skill that I had and I was qualified for, right? So now I move up, and what is it really? It's not my fault. I didn't create the structure in the NYPD. So my reward, I should be okay with watching people less talented than me get promoted? Absolutely not. Why should I be okay with the car guy moving cars around getting promoted? Why should that be okay? Like, seriously, the easy pass guy, the guy in warehouse, the guy that calls himself the head of security in the One Police Plaza, unit. Like, seriously, I'm supposed to be okay with that because I'm in an admin position. I never asked for lost time. I never asked for days off. I hated my bosses so much that I wouldn't ask till I got my last boss. Then I started taking days off, right? So, I think that's a little wrong. You should be treated everybody should be treated the same, and talent should be promoted, not whatever it is that you were saying about promotions are for workers. Nobody, till this day, I want you to find somebody that worked harder than me, whether it was in the squad or in FIS. All right, so don't tell me that. That one kind of really bothers me. Yeah. So, Watt asked me if I ever had a favorite boss. Of course, Sergeant Esposito. How could he not be my favorite boss? He was always took care of us on transit. Very dependable. Of course, there was Sergeant Lopez, man. That guy was the best. He definitely favored me in the work that I did. My anti-crime sergeant. I ended up getting in trouble for him as well because the guy refused to call IAB when they accused us of stealing his jewelry, right? So, notifying the sergeant isn't enough. To all the young cops out there, if Perp is telling you that you stole their jewelry, you have to call IAB. Do not tell your sergeant to call IAB because my sergeant told me, "Oh, Mikey, it's all right. Don't worry. He's not. Perp say that. It's all right. Perps always say that. I'm not gonna call." So that was my experience. I think that's ridiculous. Why, if I'm telling my boss that an IAB notification has to be made as per the patrol guide and he don't do it, I should get a hit for that? It's the same thing with the bicycle, man. Two things I got failure to report police corruption for that fell on the sergeant. I don't understand. Whatever. RH ask him about he feels about Clearview. Yeah, I mentioned that too. Google my name, Detective Mike Furia, NYPD. You'll see all about Clearview. I love Clearview. It's phenomenal software. And I was the fall guy for Clearview because I tested it, and I was given access to test it. I said positive things about it to the creator, Hometown Tot. I was in contact with him, and they literally leaked out my emails, and my name's on it. The delegate knew about it. He had copies of it, never mentioned it to me. I had to find that out on my own. Maybe that's why I wasn't getting promoted. Who knows? God knows why. I don't know. I didn't do anything wrong. All I know is that I liked the software, and I told the guy I'll do everything in my power for the NYPD to sign Clearview, and I did. They should have signed it. I mentioned it when I went to work for other people in my career. I kept mentioning it to people. It's their loss that they didn't use it. And ultimately, I had somebody in another agency that I used to reach out to get Clearview access. So it didn't matter. Like, it's a tool just like anything else. If we use Accurate, we could use Clearview. It's nonsense. The NYPD refuses to learn how to articulate things, especially when it comes to technology, because they don't know shit. Where are all the people? I just want to put it out there. I don't have like a computer science degree, a master's, or anything like that. I have very formal training in a trade school that I went to for digital media arts, and I know way more than because it's like anything else. If you put passion and into what your craft is, you're gonna learn, and you're gonna be valuable. But the NYPD, they refused. They're too busy hiring the juvenile crime detectives to talk about technology. Let's just leave it at that. How's your activity? Says when you're in your 20s. Oh, okay. He says when you're in your 20s, boys can be boys. So he's pretty much referring to why I got in trouble and the argument that I had in the office. When you're in your 20s, boys could be boys. Nah, sorry, man. The guy you see today is the guy I was when I was in my 20s. He's the guy I'm going to be till I'm in my grave. You ain't going to tell me what are you going to do about it. And, you're going to get what you're asking for. And that's what happened. And I'm going to keep it that simple. But till the day I can't do it anymore, I'm always going to be a man. That's how I was raised. When you're in your 20s, you're in your 20s. You want to call me immature. You want to call me disgruntled. You call me whatever you want. But you ain't going to disrespect me. Sorry. I'm not a kid. What else? I'm gonna put that with the Rob Blue Cash comment. That was two of my favorites. Why did they not? GR says, why did they not want you in the unit? Man, when you're at the top of the mountain, people could only look up. That's the only way I could describe it. I was way more knowledgeable than my supervisors. I was way more knowledgeable than my coworkers. So rightfully so. I mean, if you can't run in the marathon with them, you got to find a way to take them out. You can't win the race. You're not going to win the race. It was a personality thing, but I also think it was a lot of false promises. A lot of people were promised similar things to what I was. It's just that I had the talent and they had the promise. I was upset that I wasn't. I didn't receive the recognition that I deserve. They just strictly are all about money. I said there's a lot of people that will push their own mother down the elevator shaft, and these are the people I worked with. Just money driven. My last year, I only cared about money my last 2 years. My second to last year, I capped out every month. I didn't do anything extra, nor did I ask for any extra. We had guys that used to do Intel overtime and X for van overtime and the real-time van and the parades and all this nonsense. I just wanted to cap out, and that was it. My last year, I decided to do transit for one reason. Yeah, the money, but also, two reasons. If it wasn't for working with my old partners, I would have never did transit. I would have never did it with random people. But I looked at it as an opportunity to hang out with them and also make money. So I made $199 in 2024 and 2025, $43,000. So about $240,000. It wasn't killing it as a third grader. There were people that made a lot more than me. I didn't make no list. I didn't make anything special, but I was never money driven. I don't care about none of that. So promotion wasn't a money thing for me either. So I don't know why they, what their issues were with me. Maybe I was too cocky. Yeah. Because I'll tell you to this day, I still believe I'm the best. And it was it was proven, it is what it is. He was a boxer. No wonder they didn't want to go to smoke it with him. El Matador boxing. Yeah, man, listen, man, I was a boxer a long, long time ago. I need to get back in shape. It's pretty obvious, but it is what it is. I don't care what shape I'm in. I'm never going to let anybody disrespect me. The things that were said to me and about me, I can't believe men say that kind of stuff and not expect a reaction. So there's a lot of cowards that I used to work with that should, till this day, step up to the plate. You want to run your mouth, you should step up to the plate. I'm here. Like I always keep saying, man, wherever you want, I'm here. Ron Layson, glad I met your expectations. I'm as real as they come. Okay. Yeah, listen, that was a nice thing to say. The show, you said the show met your expectations. Well, that's good. I didn't meet, the NYPD did not meet my expectations. My whole career, it looks like a joke to me. Like I said, some people say that I had a blessed career. It's a joke to me, an absolute joke. The finest is a mirage. Not to take anything away from the great cops that are out there. I know there are phenomenal cops out there, but let's face it, that's a very small percentage of the NYPD. Hood Mayor, New York City. They gangsta in Bensonhurst. They stabbed Al Sharpton. Man, listen, so when you read my book, It's funny you mentioned Al Sharpton. I actually dated a girl that had ties to somebody that was involved with that whole incident. Um, but yeah, listen, Bensonhurst, it's not the hood. It's not East New York. It's not the Bronx. But it's got its real deal people. Like, listen, that's why a lot of the stuff that happened to me in the NYPD would have never happened to me in Bensonhurst. Like, you're not gonna talk to me that way. You're not gonna get away with that. I'm sorry. I guess it's just honesty. Maybe Bensonhurst raises honest people, and to teach you don't throw stones in a glass house. Maybe that's a lesson that's not taught in the hood. I don't know, but it's definitely not taught in the NYPD because people think they can hide behind those chevrons forever. Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to mention was Chief Corey. There was some point we were talking about Chief Corey, and I mentioned I called him out on LinkedIn when he retired because he had us do this whole "tell us our story" incident. It was pretty much a way of like explaining why you should get promoted, and if you feel like you're being overlooked or whatever. And it's just very funny because I wrote a very well article about that. And till this day, only like maybe 3 or 4 people knew about it. And I want to share it today because I wrote it on September 14th, 2022. All right, let's see if I can get that in there. September 14th, 2022. Tell us our story at nypd.org. Now, this was just another waste of time, way to get promoted. And now, before I read that, I want to put it out there. Obviously, I talk a lot about FIS because that's where my bread and butter was. I had some terrible times there. But at the end of the day, the work is the best work in the NYPD. It's the lifeline of the NYPD. It solves the cases. That's why I preach. Just give it to all the squads. You heard me say that during the podcast, John's podcast and Eric, and I stand by that. And it's just very funny because it didn't take long for what I was saying to actually come to light. There was a case in the city that probably everybody knows about right now that this poor guy over here, he ends up he somehow dies and he gets raped, right? So FIS gets this image right over here. Not a bad image. And, you see a facial hair over here. You can't really make out his nose. That nose alone is going to give you a lot of different results just because it may appear crooked. Eyebrows, obviously eyebrows change. No ear, which is huge in making a match. No hairline, which is huge in making a match. Not a true head shape. You really got to be careful with a photo like this. I'm not going to make a match on this unless there's a secondary identifier, meaning a tattoo or something else that brings this guy to the scene. I have to find something in social media. I'm never going to just make a match on this, as is. But just the next day after the podcast, they were looking for somebody in regards to that case that I believe transit robbery got an FIS hit on. It's been told to me that that's what has happened. But then shortly after, they interviewed the guy's brother, and then all of a sudden, they don't believe that the guy FIS gave. I know whose case it was. It was somebody with juvenile crime detective experience. They did the nepotism jump, the 18 months. And this was somebody that had a lot to do with me getting in trouble at the end of my career. But nevertheless, this photo, we're still trying to figure out who the perpetrator is. So I'm assuming it was a misidentification. I hope it wasn't. It doesn't look good for the unit, especially with Kaz going to technology meetings and things of that sort. So we definitely don't want that. Again, I'm going to stand by facial recognition, but it sure is something that we have to keep an eye on. And if they're going to make mistakes, like I says, why not give it to the squad? Let them make mistakes. Let them expedite the case in and out. There are definitely more talented people out there than working in the juvenile crime section FIS unit. So, nevertheless, I just want to share, Chief Corey, the story that I wrote, because these were people that ultimately turned on me. September 13, 2022. The story of the facial identification section is a much shorter story than the stories of the great men and women throughout the last 177 years in our finest department. Finest my ass. In 2011, the facial identification section became the NYPD's first dedicated unit to solely identify wanted perpetrators as well as provide investigative leads through social media. What started out with just 5 possible matches in 2011 has now become over 15,000. It's over 30,000 now. I'd say probably about 35,000 if I had to guess. FIS investigated over 7,890 cases in 2021. Man, they're way past that now. Most of them are rejections, but they're well past, that amount. Recognition is a huge word in the facial identification universe. It starts the minute you walk into our office. Since 2011, FIS has only had 22 third grade detectives assigned. Again, this is a very elite unit, or it should have been elite, and it once was. You needed special qualifications to get in the unit. You needed a photography background. You needed some kind of background to get in. And again, like I says, I didn't get in the first time I applied, nor did my old partner, Janet Fox, who had a background. She graduated from FIT. She was a phenomenal illustrator with computer experience. She didn't get in either. They took, in my opinion, for the majority, they were less qualified applicants. That's here nor there. Let me finish. Recognizing a face is the easy part. Solidifying the match is the challenge. In our office, detectives seek that challenge every day. The majority of work is self-motivated, and it is a common task to assign ourselves extra cases, as we are proud and hungry to succeed. In FIS, we currently have 5 detectives who were previously assigned to precinct detective squads or something similar. Warrants, Bronx Transit Robbery, the Grand Larceny Division, and of course, I was the squad guy at the time. This was 2022, right? Some detectives have experience working in real time. Obviously, I'm sugarcoating that they're from the juvenile crime section. Over years, we have had a wide variety of qualified personnel, including a digital media artist, a sketch artist, and photographers. Nobody that got any credit. Contrary to popular belief, we have the right resumes, just not the right recognition. That's true. Every day we recognize and embrace each other's good jobs and cases that were solved, thinking outside the box. The NYPD personnel have applauded our PowerPoint and demonstrations of these cases. But due to the sensitivity of our work, the question we wonder as a unit is, are our contributions being recognized? As a former squad detective, I know the grueling process of building a case and the time it takes to see an A1 closing at the end of a long-term investigation where subpoena results are needed and canvases can seem endless. With FIS work, you see 2 photos and the word possible match on a report and a logo, which were also created by artists in this unit. The Detective Bureau knows what to look for to solve a case, but there are very few that can recognize the work that went into a difficult FIS case. This is still very true. Although technology since July 2022 did make things a lot easier. These cases can include enhancing photos that have low visibility, enhancing photos that have one eye, distorted facial features, half a face, sunglass removal, hairline sharpening, skin clone stamping, removing blood in breathing tubes off of a DOA, or simply trying images in reversed or black and white format. in 2017 or 2018, I had an image that was reversed. I did 17 different edits to this photo, and it was actually just like one that actually hits. That's how hard it was back then. Totally different now. But we have 2 detectives that are certified by Adobe that specialize in this talent. Although all of our work deserves tremendous recognition and acknowledgement, the following contributions go beyond the standard requirements of assignment and deserve the highest praise and appreciation, right? In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic came with a huge obstacle for members of the facial identification section. Masks were a camouflage that covered sometimes more than 50% facial features. The algorithm with facial recognition software automatically rejected these images submitted to us because there were not enough visible nodal points in the face. And then the face has like 90 nodal points, right? Software now is going well beyond 90. The 2 Photoshop experts in the office were able to come up with a combat for these cases, and it has become the primary focus of their jobs. So now, while I'm wasting my time all day enhancing photos, so-and-so is taking a drag and drop with the clear face, right? None of that could be measured. Nobody was looking. Nobody cared. At that time, I did it over 40 times, which ended up being over 53 times. To be specific, these are not just difficult photos. These were impossible photos at that time. The time these cases took to solve varied from days to weeks during a time we were flooded with cases and also had personnel shortages and health issues of our own, which was true. I was doing a lot of this from home. In 2020, I solved 26 cases while working from home as I couldn't be present at work due to COVID-19 complications. In this time, I developed a mask removal process in Photoshop. We even had people sent out to other units, shortage, details, everyone faced it, right? Then I go on to start naming some of the best cases, right? I name my cases. I even name the guy who called IAB on me. I even named his cases, right? And I'm going to prove that by reading it right now. See, so it's right here. Detective Michael Furia, identifying 2 of the 3 armed perpetrators in one of New York City's largest diamond heists, $4 million. In August of 2019, despite perps wearing hats and wigs, confirming the identification of the Brooklyn subway shooter, as well as identifying blind photos of him walking out of the subway in April 22. So in that Brooklyn subway shooter case, what I did was not solely identified him. Obviously, the squad did all that, but he was in another area coming out of the subway where I was able to get a facial rec hit on. And it took tremendous amount of enhancing that photo to make that old mugshot that he had come up. Now, it was a really old mugshot. And this places him at the scene. So this is very important. The lieutenant took a lot of credit for this. Identifying perpetrators in the June 2021 shooting in the 4-4 precinct with 2 children, brother and sister, 11 and 4 inches away on a sidewalk. I mentioned that was the Cato case. FIS has solved hundreds of bank robberies. In September of 2019, FIS identified a perpetrator. And you notice I'm saying FIS. I'm not even saying just me, even though this was my case. The FIS identified a perpetrator who robbed over 12 banks within 6 months. This identification required photo enhancement as the glass behind bank desk needed to be enhanced due to fisheye and glare. In June 2022, identification of perpetrator who threatened the life of Queens Councilman Robert Holden. Maybe I shouldn't have found that guy. In August of 2018, FIS identified a dismembered victim who was brutally beaten and decapitated, utilizing numerous methods of image enhancing and pose correction, right? So then I go on to speak about the rat. The rat that in October 2020, he identified a perpetrator in the confines of the 6-8, and it was a great job. I actually told him he should have took the collar on this case, because not only did he identify this guy who raped an 85-year-old woman, or attempted to, he proved that we don't just push buttons. He's actually going to his car and he sees the guy, calls the boss runs down so he could take credit. And they end up putting this guy in cuffs and bringing him to SVU, right? So that was a hell of a case. It happened 4 other times. Other detectives have done it before. But unfortunately, nobody knows about that because the bosses always took the credit. So here I am boasting this guy, and little did I know he was going to call IB on me at the end of my career. But yeah, so and I also mentioned his other big case that I ultimately let him take, a rice cooker case in August of 2019. Suspect who was placing rice cookers in the subway of New York City. Not a big case, it wasn't even a bomb or anything like that, but it could have been, I guess. So they look at it like that. NYPD loves to talk about things that aren't really not a big deal. But that was the day I was RDO. I came into work. I only worked like maybe 2 RDOs in my entire career in facial identification when others were given it all the opportunity all the time. But that particular day, I had just recently made that really good bank robbery arrest, and I came into work. I was helping out with this rice cooker case. I asked guy Frank Mancuso downstairs in real time to pull DOS video. He pulled DOS video for me, gives it to me. I go upstairs. I start running these photos. I share these photos with the 2 other guys working, one being this rat, and we start running the photos. One guy's eating his bagel, the other guy's watching him eat the bagel, and I'm running these photos. I jumped on the first guy that I seen. Unfortunately, it wasn't him. The second guy, in my view, was the right guy. I had them all, you save all the guys that you're looking at and everything. And while I'm looking at that, Sammy the Rat tells me, yo, listen, I think I found the guy. Bro, I swear to God, this guy looks just like him, bro. So I'm like, yeah, his name's so-and-so, right? So I go, I find the social media, I see the same tattoos. Yeah, it's the same guy. Oh, man, great job, great job. You going to take this? No, you know what? You could take it. You could have this case, right? So that's how that went down. One of the biggest mistakes I ever made was giving away that case because they made such a big deal about it. And I'll never really understand it. Yeah, see, everyone knows about it. Bro, I swear to God. Bro, I swear to God. But it is what it is, man. I'd rather him take my case than the boss take credit for it. And in the end, he got a $50 gift card, and he didn't even buy me a cup of coffee. But he ended up giving me chlorine for my pool years later that he was throwing away in the garbage, and I had to go pick it up. But it's all good. Then I also mentioned another detective. When a baby was abandoned in a Bronx grocery store, FIS identified the parents of the baby and scraped social media link to link the family together in May of 2021. In March of 2022, when an 87-year-old female was pushed into a New York City subway, causing her demise, FIS was able to find social media to link the male and female perpetrators through non-routine applications such as a Zola wedding registry and Venmo, proving that FIS is an investigative unit. This was social media scrubbing. We didn't, use Zola wedding registries to find people, but innovativeness allowed us to do things like that. In 2021, FIS identified over 527 homicide persons of interest for over 368 cases. So think about that. That's a lot in 1 year. I'm pretty sure that was the entirety of the unit from 2011 to 2021. That's what I was trying to say. In my career alone, I have 206 of those homicide identifications. So that's substantial. I also mentioned another detective. Identification of a perpetrator involved in the homicide of 15-year-old Junior Lisandro Filiz Guzman homicide. It's just funny that I put this because that detective that stole my paperwork and took credit for cases he didn't do, that was one of the cases that this female detective actually did, right? So now I put all those other major cases of my coworkers, even the people that didn't like me, right? I send this to tell us our story, which is supposed to go to Chief Corey. let me just finish the email. I personally have reached my highest accomplishment attaining assignment in this unit as I begin studying this field in college in 2001. When it comes to facial recognition and Photoshop, I take the utmost pride and take the lack of unit recognition with a great deal of sadness. I get to witness talent most MOS don't see or hear about every day, and the misconception that the computer is doing all the work has taken a toll on the entire unit. Yeah, such a toll that they call an IRB on me. It is fair to say we spend most of our days trying to impress each other. This was true because we gave up trying to impress anyone else within our division, let alone the entire NYPD. We have never had a promotion, commendation, or social media shout out due to the public sensitivity of the technology. Oh, I'm shouting you out now. Don't worry. We have experienced a cognitive bias where people with little knowledge or experience in facial recognition judge the quality and difficulty of our assignment. Despite dealing with the Dunning-Kruger effect and bad publicity we have been through in the media, we continue to succeed and seal the deal for detective squads everywhere. The greatest FIS investigators have retired. Shout out to Waldo Cuba. They did this job with the original algorithms and never got the recognition that they deserved looking through hundreds of thousands of photos. There were other detectives that I didn't even personally know, like Roger Rodriguez, who works for a very respectable company today. He started doing the Photoshop enhancements before I was even in existence. And, you know, he paved the way for people like me. No credit. Today, technology has made certain aspects of our job faster, but there will always be poor quality photos that need to be professionally altered. FIS is often the first place detectives to chiefs call when a high media case occurs. As technology improves, talent will even be more overlooked. Although we are encompassed in investigative support, we solve most investigations that would take hours of manpower and money within minutes to days instead of weeks into months. We are more than investigative support. We have proved it time and time again. I only wish the unit will receive the attention it deserves. Bah, bah, bah. Sincerely, Michael Furia. So, wasted a long time writing that email to Chief Corey, who ultimately just left. Nothing got done. Nobody got recognition. Nobody got anything. But just this January, 16 people in real time got their asses kicked out, right? But maybe they should have looked at the qualifications and the experience that certain people had instead of just picking by nepotism, right? So recognition is never a thing that is going to be transparent, but nepotism sure is very transparent under this administration. So basically, it just goes to show you that I can take my hat off. If I don't like you, I could still give you credit. I could still say you did a good job as a detective. I could still, appreciate what you do. And it doesn't have to be an IAB phone call, just because somebody's more talented than you. This brings me back to the beginning of the show when I started talking about my old delegate there. You have to be mindful of when somebody is a good guy or a nice guy. It really means weak coward. And that was my experience. And basically, that I think I'm going to close the chapter on this part of my career. I've already reached all my goals. I got to laugh in their face. I got to enjoy a lot of exposing, bad things that were done to me and bad people that were done. And I got to reach out to everybody that I wanted to reach out. I got to make that visit. I got to see people that I planned and said I was going to see. Right. And, I'm not done yet. So, that part of my career is definitely done. And I'd like to see where else I could go with this. I'd like to talk about other topics. I'd like to see what happens with the future of FIS. I hope Chief Servino is taking my advice. Make that whole thing one centralized unit. Give the squad the technology they deserve. Tish is a technology person. Just start giving out those codes. Give out those the technology. Let detectives be detectives, right? Because mistakes are being made either way. So let's let's strengthen our numbers, right? With that being said, we'll see where I go from here. We'll see the next chapter. I want to branch out to other things. I got other projects I'm working on. I might actually put this platform into a more season-based thing where I take breaks and I come back with better content. Or maybe I'll focus on other things. There's a lot of different things to talk about, and the NYPD is always going to have content, as John and Eric always say. It's not going away, and the corruption ain't ever going to go away. So right now, the other thing that's funny that was in the news recently was the MTA thing, that whole debacle, and that guy, really destroyed things real quick for the NYPD. People doing transit. It's crazy. I kept posting. If you guys see my post about how it only just takes one accusation and the NYPD just turns against us. And my biggest problem with that was, where were the unions? Where was the DEA? Where was the PBA? How come nobody, publicly didn't say anything about that situation? They just let whoever it was, whatever executive, I don't want to blame Tish, or I don't want to blame any of the specific chiefs, but why were emails sent out saying we can't go in break rooms? If I'm contractually allowed 20-minute personals, what does it matter? As long as I'm not in an off-duty, off-limit location or a cooping prone location, like a lot. Now all break rooms are cooping prone. You could sleep in the Burger King bathroom. There's plenty of places you could sleep. Stop, knock it off. Trust your members. You're not going to stop everybody from closing their eyes. And a picture doesn't show the story. Sorry, that's not how it works. But my biggest gripe with that was the union's response. And still, to this day, we heard a story all that they're meeting up with people. Man, that whatever happened already, and we still never seen any change. So I don't know. I'm glad I don't have to deal with it. And I look out for I'm looking out for everybody with the whole all out thing. God bless you guys. I hope you get to work with somebody you feel safe working with. I hope you get a little control over when you're going. I hope you get a little sensitivity with your bosses when they come around and they realize that you probably haven't been standing on a foot post in many years if you're a veteran detective, and you're probably not going to do much, because why would you risk losing your pension for this job that doesn't love you, right? Isn't that what they says? The job will not love you back. Some great advice. So I hope I answered everybody's questions. It's going on 2.5 hours. This is about how long my podcast was. So now I'm pretty content with everything. I think we got everything out there. Now I'm just finishing up the fine tuning of the book selling process. It's very complicated. Like I said, there's a lot of people involved. It's not just I finished writing it a long time ago. So it's not about that. It's just the editing and the legalities and certain things you want to fine tune. But soon enough, it should be on Amazon. We'll see what else, if I market it anywhere else. Everyone keeps telling me about Barnes and Nobles. I don't know what I really want to do. It's really just another format that you do for Barnes and Nobles as well. So we'll see where I go with that. But we'll see. For now, I'm not saying when I'm going to start season 2 or whatever it is that I'm doing, because I really don't know yet. In the meantime, I'm just looking forward to the summer. I think that's when retirement is really going to kick in for me. I've been obviously very still attached, in all the NYPD news, and I wanted to be on that podcast. Again, thank you, John and Eric. That was a perfect way to end my career. And I appreciate everybody for the positive support and everybody that follows me on social media. It's definitely positive to see such feedback. My chat, I got a lot of people that every day reaching out to me. One of my friends in my chat, he's telling me about IB, watching every little thing lately. a lot of calling you in for witnesses over nonsense. And I could definitely attest to that because I know somebody who I was very close with that is become victim of the disciplinary matrix right now. So just be mindful out there and don't be afraid to say, listen, I may have been looking that way, but my attention was focused somewhere else. They could never prove what you were looking at. It doesn't matter what your body camera was pointing to, right? It's not what you know, it's what you can prove, unfortunately. And sometimes it is fortunate, right? But you gotta play their game. And I know I played the game at the very end and I won. And that's probably the legacy that I'm leaving behind is I took on the job and won, right? So those who knew me best, that was the celebration that I had that was still a problem. You can't be too happy when you're Mike Furia, right? So with all that being said, thank you for tuning in today. If you guys got any more questions, comments, go on my social media page. I'm going to jump on Instagram Live later on. I'm going to jump on TikTok Live later on. Maybe I'll get some comments about that. There was a few people that were consistently watching. Thanks for watching, whether you're a friend or a foe or Hassan Mo. I appreciate your views. And until next time, be safe out there. Enjoy this nice weather. All right. Take care, guys. Vendetta Blue.
Bitch.
I kicked those crackers' ass, man. I have a
Some have called them the dream team. I'm just grateful.